For 13 days in October 1962, the world unknowingly balanced on the edge of nuclear annihilation, and the fate of millions came down to the quiet decisions of a few individuals whose names were almost lost to history. In the early morning hours of October 14th, 1962, an American U-2 spy plane flew high above Cuba, its pilot unaware that the photographs being taken would soon terrify the highest levels of the United States government. When the images were developed, CIA analysts saw unmistakable evidence. The Soviet Union was installing nuclear missile bases on Cuban soil, just 90 miles from Florida. These missiles had the power to destroy major U.S. cities within minutes. President John F. Kennedy was informed the next day, and with that briefing, the Cold War entered its most dangerous chapter. The discovery shocked Washington. Just a year earlier, the failed Bay of Pigs invasion had humiliated the United States and strengthened Fidel Castro's alliance with Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev. Now Khrushchev appeared to be tipping the nuclear balance of power by secretly placing medium-range ballistic missiles in the Western Hemisphere. Kennedy immediately formed a small advisory group known as the Executive Committee of the National Security Council, or EXCOM. Their task was simple in description, but impossible in reality: stop the missiles without starting World War III. Inside the White House, debates were fierce. Some military leaders pushed for immediate airstrikes and a full invasion of Cuba. Others warned that such action would almost certainly provoke a Soviet response in Europe, particularly against Berlin, or even a direct nuclear exchange. Kennedy, haunted by the possibility of miscalculation, searched for a path that showed strength without recklessness. After days of tense discussion, he chose a naval quarantine, a blockade designed to prevent further Soviet missiles from reaching Cuba. On October 22nd, Kennedy addressed the nation on live television. Millions of Americans sat frozen in their living rooms as the president calmly announced the presence of Soviet nuclear weapons in Cuba and declared that any missile launched from the island would be considered an attack by the Soviet Union itself. The speech transformed a secret crisis into a global spectacle. Across the United States, people rushed to buy canned food, schools practiced duck-and-cover drills, and families quietly discussed what they would do if the unthinkable happened. As U.S. Navy ships moved into position around Cuba, the world waited. Soviet vessels carrying military equipment steamed toward the quarantine line. For hours, no one knew whether they would challenge the blockade. Then, in a moment of immense relief, several Soviet ships slowed and turned back. But the danger was far from over. Missile sites in Cuba were rapidly becoming operational, and American reconnaissance flights continued at great risk. One U-2 plane was shot down over Cuba, killing pilot Major Rudolph Anderson. Many in Washington feared this would trigger immediate retaliation. Behind the scenes, diplomacy took on a desperate urgency. Khrushchev sent Kennedy a series of emotional and often contradictory letters. In one, he offered to remove the missiles if the United States promised not to invade Cuba. In another, harsher message, he demanded the removal of U.S. nuclear missiles from Turkey. The situation became even more perilous on October 27th, later called Black Saturday. Unknown to the White House, a Soviet submarine near Cuba, harassed by U.S. depth charges, nearly launched a nuclear torpedo. Only the refusal of one officer, Vasily Arkhipov, to authorize the launch prevented catastrophe. Kennedy made a critical choice. Publicly, he accepted the first, more reasonable offer and ignored the second. Privately, he sent word through back channels that the U.S. missiles in Turkey would be quietly removed later. On October 28th, Khrushchev announced that the Soviet Union would dismantle and withdraw its missiles from Cuba. The crisis was over. The Cuban Missile Crisis reshaped American foreign policy and nuclear strategy. Both superpowers realized how close they had come to destroying each other, leading to the establishment of a direct hotline between Washington and Moscow and future arms control agreements. For the American public, it was a sobering lesson. Survival in the nuclear age depended not only on power, but on restraint, communication, and human judgment. What makes this moment so astonishing is not just how close the world came to nuclear war, but how narrowly it was avoided, through patience, empathy, and the courage to step back from the edge. In those 13 days, history did not turn on explosions or armies, but on quiet decisions made under unbearable pressure, proving that even at humanity's darkest hour, Disaster is not inevitable.